Hello, my name's James and thank you for watching this video. What do we have here? We have what we call the one-page business hypothesis, and it's a business planning tool. But it's a different business planning tool. It's designed for today's businesses. It's designed for the 21st century, and it goes away from the traditional 30-40 page narrative plan that used to be commonplace. The problem with those plans is they get written, they take a long time, and then they sit on the shelf gathering dust and very rarely used. So we've over the years, over the last, actually through the recession, have developed this hypothesis to better represent a business, because when you're starting out as a business, if you're a startup or an existing business but looking to break into a new market, what you have is an idea for a business, or what we call a hypothesis. So rather than spending months and months guessing what it's going to be and documenting it, what we've done is given you a tool so you can put your idea into the structure of a business to evaluate it, so you can try, learn and adapt, because that's what a startup is all about. So this is where we would begin. It's also the direction that financial institutions are starting to head. They're now foregoing the 30-page plan and asking for slide decks. Well, this we feel is a better approach, more focused approach, and it enables investors or other stakeholders, partners, to evaluate your business idea in a much more concise fashion. Because what we've done is boiled down your business into the 11 main components that we're looking for, or investors will be looking for. So this is the page one. This is the main business idea right here. And as you can see, there are 11 cells on this page. Page 2 is more of a higher level planning, where you have the team that you need to build this company, an advisory board you'll want to establish, and the partners you need outside of your business, such as suppliers, people you need to buy software from, equipment from, etc., etc., partners that you need to get your business going. But when you begin a hypothesis, you always start with what we call the story. And the story has two components. What does the world look like before your product and service is on the market? And then what does your world look like after the product and service is on the market? And what we're looking for is literally a story, a narrative. So as you can see here, the sample is talking, it says, John has an idea for a new business. He calls it Meds Delivery. He has never started a business before or even worked for himself before, but he's aware of a business, where he needs a business plan, and then blah blah blah, an actual story, because people relate to stories as opposed to just lists of benefits that or solutions that are typically a startup would do in their business plan. Then we want to know the same story, but we want to know it after the product and service is in place, and therefore how much better it made John's life. Now when you completed the story, you would then move on to page 1. Now we have another video that walks you through actually how to use the tool, but it's very straightforward. Essentially, after you finish the story, you'll then be asked to complete the problem and who has the problem, or what we call the customer segment, because you need to understand who your customer is to clearly define the problem. Now don't get into the mistake of listing statements like July is a hot day, because that's not a problem. For a lot of people that could be a very positive thing. What you want to do is list things like, in July a lot of people get sunburn, for example. But you also need to specify the target customer, very importantly, because let's say sun is not an issue for seniors because perhaps they don't go out in the sun in July. So it's very important to define those at the same time. Now the next part is the first test of what we call the phase gate, because what we also want to do is have you make a go no go decision on this new business. Because having a business, if you haven't had one before, let me spoiler alert here, but it is very hard. So if you're going to do a business, make sure it's a good business idea. So the first thing you want to do is the market sufficient to support your business? As you can see, there's some examples here. It's saying that the total market size is 192 million people. However, the target market is 800,000 people, which is obviously a much smaller number. We're getting into more realistic numbers, and then we're saying the effective market is 573,000 people. Now, if you're presenting to an investor, and we see this a lot, where somebody will say it's a $4 trillion business or it's a $1 billion business, that is not effectively conveying your understanding of that market. You want to be able to say there are 500,000 people who potentially want to buy this product, and this will actually get. This is a very important number to get, because when we get into the revenue component of the hypothesis, meaning when we get to the point of saying, well, this is how the company is going to make revenue, we also wanted to show, well, we also want to get a sense of how much revenue this business could actually generate. And what we like to do is we like to take, here we're saying based on a 1% market penetration, so we're going to say 1% of this effective market multiplied by the revenue streams, and we're actually putting dollar figures here, will actually give us an idea of the kind of numbers we're looking for, perhaps on an annual basis. So here we're saying that at a 1% penetration, we're looking at an $8 million business. Now this is good for investors, because they will immediately do a multiply on that. Say, well, I think if I invest in this company and I give them $1 million, and we put that into marketing, within a year we might be able to get 10% of that market, which means we're actually looking at an $80 million business. The great thing is the investor can make that calculation bang very easily, as opposed to a traditional narrative plan, which is the kind of thing they're trying to get to those numbers. With a narrative plan, they will have to flick it from one page to another, trying to find out how can they work out what kind of business. Otherwise, they have to go on their gut. They have to say, well, I've looked at businesses like this before, and I didn't think it was a very good idea, so this probably isn't either. So you will have to get over those prejudices. Now, if the market size is sufficient, next thing is say, okay, it's worth looking at the what solution we want to provide. Now, it's also important to understand the competition at the same time. So we want you to fill in these two cells at the same time, because the competition and what we call the market alternatives can dictate the kind of solution you're going to build. And I'll give you a quick example of what I'm talking about. If you wanted to get into the transportation market, and let's say you wanted to build a new version of a Tesla, maybe a hydro-powered Tesla, I don't know, something like that. So your competition would be the Tesla and other comparable vehicles, whereas market alternatives are a bicycle, even a skateboard is technically an alternative. It's basically something else that an individual could spend their money on. Now it's important to know this, because when you do your marketing literature, depending on which audience you're targeting, will dictate what kind of message you're going to say. So once you've decided, so if you say the market's a sufficient size, and then you come up with your solution, and then you look at your competition, and if the competition doesn't exist, or it's minimal, or the alternatives are not very strong, then you can say, continue on with the hypothesis, saying, okay, it looks good. Market's good enough, we have an idea for a solution, the competition's not that strong, so let's move on to the next piece, how we're going to make revenue. And I talked about that a little bit early on, so I won't spend any more time on that. Next thing is the channel. Very big question investors are looking to ask. How are you going to get to your customer? If your customer are pygmies in the Outer Mongolia, if there is such a thing, it's going to be very hard to get your message out to them. So I'm going to stop there, but I just wanted to give you an overview of the business hypothesis. I just wanted to share one more thing. The idea of the hypothesis is a collaboration tool and a communication tool. So if I go to the invitation manager, I can invite individuals as either a collaborator, which means they can add comments, they can make changes to your hypothesis, and you can control when and how they do that. If you just want to use the tool to convey your idea to, let's say, an investor, you can email them a link with this password, and you can actually control when they have access. So I might say, okay, I'm going to give them access for 2 days. If they don't look at it for 2 days, I'm going to assume they're really not that interested. Or I can actually say, this access can never expire, and they will always get access. But you can override that later on, so don't worry about this. So to invite people, you just enter their email addresses here, or if you've previously invited people in other business ideas that you've had, you can just pick from the list here. There's You can ask for assistance from Canova. That's me. That's my company. This is. Bear in mind, this tool is free. I don't know if I mentioned that, but we're giving this tool for free because we want to help people make right business decisions without making the mistake of spending lots of money in a bad business idea. Another option here is a communications tool for messaging, so you can send messages to your team, and your team will get email notifications that there's a message in here. That's a good overview. There are, of course, a number of other options, but that's the main idea. We hope you want to use it. We hope you use it. We've had a great deal of success. I don't believe there's one person yet has ever regretted filling it out, and I don't think you will too. Thanks very much for watching, and we hope to see you in the hypothesis.